Welcome to Practicing Life Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Pitzer. Do you struggle with receiving love? So in this instance, you're the type of person who's okay or comfortable with giving love and giving flattery, affection, gifts, all of these things that are ways of showing love. But the question is, are you okay receiving love? Do you trust that it's authentic? Are you always questioning whether or not this is true? This episode is for you then. So this goes out to all those people that are asking, do you love me, to somebody? So here's the thing. There are, in my viewpoint, many different types of love. And love shows up differently in relationships. And I like to focus on the relationship with yourself, as this is what I coach on, the relationship with yourself. And when we talk about or ask someone, do you love me? And it is like you're doing some type of comparison or tallying in your head to see if somebody loves you. Like you're seeing, like, have they proven that they love me? Can I validate that they love me? Is there evidence that they love me? And ultimately, even if there is evidence, you're seeking the reassurance of, do you love me? Have you wondered why that is and what that means about you? One of the people in my life ask me constantly, do you love me? And I say yes. And here's the thing about it. And this is what I tell this person. I make my boundaries really clear. I can't prove to you that I love you. No matter how much I say and no matter how much I do, it won't be enough reassurance and validation for you. I've gone down the road several times in the past before I really became a coach and started doing the self-work myself. So not only was I a person who often asked, especially to my husband when we started dating at like 16, right? I can remember asking him, do you love me? Or do you still love me? Or why do you love me? Like these are all things in my past that I totally participated in. And now that I'm on the other side, I have somebody in my life that is asking me this question. And I let them know boundaries, right? This is not something that I am going to work to prove to you. It is not my job to prove to this person that I love them. I do. And they can choose to accept that or not accept that. But I refuse to jump through hurdles and obstacles to prove to them when at the end of the day, it's really up to them to decide whether or not they trust that I love them. And this is why I don't jump through the obstacles and the hurdles. And I used to. Boy, did I really play into that game, probably because I was somebody who asked those same questions myself. And so I know from personal experience when this person would ask, do you love me? Then it initiated something within me that was like, well, then I'm not doing enough. I'm not showing my love enough. And it would cause me to go out and buy gifts, have more time with this person, like say more words, and constantly feed into this codependency relationship, which was no good for either of us. It was exhausting and energetically draining for me. And at the end of the day, like I said, this person would ultimately decide whether or not they felt loved. And I could do all of these things and they could still say to me, that's not enough. That's toxic. And I am not playing that game anymore. Let me tell you, not working for me. But I want to talk to you about when you are that person. I was that person who was asking others, do you love me? This is really an emotionally needy person whose needs are not being met internally. And so they're seeking it externally. This is often because of low self-worth, because they don't know how to give it to themselves. And so when I talk about the fact that there are lots of different types of like love relationships, there's the relationship with yourself. Can you love yourself? Can you love others? I forget what the saying is right now, but a lot of people will say something along the lines of, if you can't love yourself, then you can't love others. This, I would argue a little bit. And I do say it to a certain extent in maybe meaning a different intention. So I'm going to explain myself here. When you love yourself more, it is easier for you to love other people. When you love yourself and your body is like full of this love. Like, I love myself. I can feel my love, my energy of love, like pushing outside of my body. I've had people tell me, strangers tell me that when they saw me across the room and I smiled at them, they felt love and they wanted to come over and talk to me. I love myself. I don't look at this as an egotistic, a vain thing. I look at this as everybody deserves to feel this way about themselves. Maybe it's my mission to help as many people as possible to live and feel this way, just because I know how rewarding of an experience it is. And it's one of the reasons why I'm an ascension coach. I want to help you raise your vibrations. I want you to feel so much self-love and self-worth that you can have your fantasy life that you've only dreamed of probably up until now. And I don't know if you've ever heard this or not, but dreams without goals often don't go anywhere and they can lead to disappointment. So I'm that person that's going to help you create the steps, the bridge between your fantasy life and how you're showing up today. And so I do that bridge. I do that through helping you get self-worth, self-love, because the relationship with yourself is the foundation for everything. And it opens the gateway, the portal to having what it is that you're really, like, your heart's desire, what you're truly seeking on a soulful level. And I'm not talking on an egotistic level. I am talking like the purpose and the reason that you came here at this time, at this place, to be you. Yes, that purpose. So the heart's true desire. Now, I want to go back to this love thing, because I know people hear this quote that you can't really love another person until you love yourself. Here's the thing. You are capable. You are capable of loving an animal, another person, another object. Like, it's not that you can't love somebody else if you don't love yourself. It's not a measure of if you are capable or you are not. It's really a question of, are you able to be a conduit for love? Are you able to not only give love, but receive love? And this is where I find a lot of people struggling. A lot of people struggling. They can totally give love. Love speaks to their heart, but receiving love, ooh, that feels uncomfortable. Maybe even painful. Maybe it's to that point that you've had something happen in your past. Like, for instance, maybe when you were growing up, the people that you were surrounded by, that you had the expectation should have loved you, like your parents, maybe your grandparents, maybe it was other extended family. And you had the expectation that they should have loved you, but you didn't necessarily feel loved or safe or supported as a child. Then you can grow up not having trust when people are showing you love, and you may reject it on a subconscious level. You may always be suspicious of it because you're carrying your past with you in each relationship you are participating in. And so you may be able to give love, but you may not be able to receive love. And then there's the whole thing of love that most people operate from, which is conditional love. And then the flip side of that is unconditional love. Well, I'm going to tell you that almost most of the love I see going around in this world is conditional love, right? If you do this, it means you love me. No, that's not my definition of love. That's conditional love. And so when we throw around love, the word love, we may not know what we're actually talking about, because for most people, when they think of love, they are thinking of conditional love. One of the things that I knew right off the bat, even if I couldn't recognize it in myself. But when I got into my relationship with my husband now, which I dated him from high school, so at 16, I knew even as a 16-year-old that his parents were manipulating and controlling him, and they were doing it through conditional love. Let me tell you an example. So they may be like, well, if you get good grades, then you are a good boy and you are acceptable in our family. If you don't, you are the black sheep. I will ignore you. I will cold shoulder you. I will make you stay in your room for weeks upon weeks. I will take away all sorts of pleasures. Like, right? Love, in my opinion, should not operate this way. But this is how it has been operating for many, many of us. And it's honestly how I've showed up in certain relationships too, even as a 16-year-old, recognizing the difference between conditional love and unconditional love. I definitely have fallen into the conditional love. I did it early on in my parenting where I really felt like, well, it's easier to love somebody when they are following the conditions and the expectations that I have for them. And I actually had to go through a relearning curve because I didn't even realize I was doing it. I just got sucked into society and the way society shows up. And, whatever. We don't always consider the fact that we are being brainwashed every day, but in a way we kind of are. I mean, I'm using this term loosely, but whatever you're dating yourself with, whatever you're surrounding yourself with, it is honestly influencing your subconscious. So if you are in an environment that doesn't support unconditional love, if you are working in a place that is not a healthy place, like you start to get influenced by these things and it affects you. And it sometimes can be very slow and you don't recognize it. So for me, I had to wake up and realize that I had slipped into this place as an adult of having conditional love. And I had to undo and unlearn these ways of being and show up differently, show up with love. So like for instance, there's a part in my life where I really wanted to be loved and accepted. And because of that, I definitely participated in the conditional love. And I didn't have unconditional love for myself. I was like, okay, well, like in this environment, you need me to be like when I was an executive risk manager, they were looking for the role of somebody who was kind of cold and could say certain things, just flatly tell people like expectations, right? And so I may have shown up differently. If I was that same person today, I would have acted differently because I could have said things and done things from a place of unconditional love, much more empowering, so worth it. But I wasn't that person then. And so I couldn't show up that way. I had a lot of insecurities. I had a lot of self doubt and lack of self worth. And so it was very easy to mold myself to what other people wanted me to be so that I could feel loved. This is one of my gaslighting episodes. It references to that. But anyway, besides the point, when you're not able to receive love, like I said, because it feels uncomfortable, because you don't trust it, because you don't think you deserve it, it ultimately boils down, when you dig through all of those layers, it ultimately boils down to a self-worth issue. Somewhere deep down in your subconscious, you don't feel worthy of receiving love. You may subconsciously block it, but that doesn't mean that you can't give love. And often these people that have very severe reactions to receiving love are the ones that are really, really good, like bending over backwards at giving love. That doesn't mean that that's universally true, because there can be people who cannot give love and who cannot receive love. There can be people who are an exchange, like, so, okay, you give me a little love, I will give you a little love. So love shows up like I said, in a lot of different ways, but the love that we're often talking about is conditional love. Whereas unconditional love actually means that I expect nothing from you. You don't have to change. You don't have to do anything for me. You don't have to be a certain way. You don't have to give me anything. You don't have to respond to me a certain way. You can do things that I completely do not like or disagree with, and I will still love you because it has nothing to do with the other person, really. It's just a choice to love that person for who they are and how they are showing up today. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything that they do. It doesn't mean that they need to give it back. You expect absolutely nothing from them. And if you can still feel in your heart love for them, then that's unconditional love. And this is really what I've learned to do as a parent now. I don't expect for my kid to follow and be me. I don't expect for my kid to make straight A's in order to get a high five. I don't just celebrate his wins. I am not sitting here participating in this conditional concept of love where you can only get the high fives and the hugs and the joy when you're complying to what I want. I'm going to give my kid love even when they do something terrible. I was having a conversation with my kid the other day about stealing. And when we were talking, I said, just so you know, like, this is my past with stealing. This is my brother's past with stealing. Like, these are what the rules are about stealing, right? And I'm talking about all of these things. And so I'm letting my kid know, if you ever steal and you ever get caught, I'm not bailing you out. This was the whole message. But the counter message to that is, and this doesn't change how I love you. Even if you were to steal, which I would, frown upon and I would disagree with, but even if you were to steal, and even if you were to go to jail, in my viewpoint, that doesn't make you a bad person or any less lovable. Still love you 100%, right? So this is how I show up differently as a parent. And this is also how I show up in other relationships, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. That's because the brain generalizes. And although that is not always 100% true, because you can have compartmentalized areas, like a rule of thumb, this is how your brain works. Now, you can have your brain trained to be different in different environments, but usually you are one way in this environment, so you are this way in other environments. And so if my kid were to fail, let's say if he were to flunk out of school, guess what? I would still be loving him. I would still be giving him hugs. I would still be telling him he matters. I would still be going through all of the things, but I would let him know, like, hey, if you're struggling with something, like, let's get help. Like, let's see a tutor. Let's do these things. And I would still be celebrating the fact, and I know this sounds really weird to a lot of you, but I'd still be celebrating the fact that he struggled and he failed, because that is a natural part of life. And when you pick yourself up from that, I mean, kudos, freaking awesome. How empowering. But you would never know what that is like if you didn't have an environment where it was okay for you to fail and make mistakes. And this is why a lot of people are afraid of fear and failure, because they associate it with some painful thing from their past, or maybe they were scolded or ignored, or they didn't receive love. That's the bottom line. They didn't receive love. So even if my kid does something that's I wouldn't want for him, I'm still going to show up with love. I'm still going to have the energy of love. Now, I know I related this to parenting, but please apply this to whatever area it is in your life. What I want to tell you is that if you are a person who has trouble receiving love, it is not an external world problem. It is not the other person. It is not their fault that, like, for instance, if you're asking, do you love me? It is not that person's fault that you may not always believe that they love you. Now, I'm going to just put a little pause, a pin in it, if you will. and say, there is an observation, and it's worth having observations to see how people treat you. But you really have to stop and ask yourself first, are you meeting your needs? Are you loving yourself? Because often it is an internal problem, meaning I don't feel loved. I'm going to seek it externally. And if I'm not getting enough, if it's not registering in my whole system as feeling loved, I'm going to keep searching, and I'm going to keep questioning other people. And when you don't have it, if you don't have the source, if you're not the well of your love, like a well as in like you dig deep into the water, into the earth to get water, like you are the well, you are your own source, and you're looking for it externally, it's often very disappointing because it may not match exactly what you have in mind or exactly what your needs are. Like for instance, if your love language is gifts and that's how you feel loved. And so all of these people around you are doing chores for you, or driving you places, or picking you up places, or sending you little notes of affection, but you're looking for gifts and they're not giving you gifts. And you're like, oh my gosh, this person doesn't love me. Or I see this a lot in the older generations for couples that where maybe a man was raised not to express emotions of love. And so they may not feel comfortable saying, I love you. Whereas many women in these older generations are looking for the exact words of I love you. You are the most important thing to me. I couldn't live without you, right? They have been, in a way, influenced not only by their culture, but what they see on TV and romantic movies. And so they're looking for this. And then they may have a partner who doesn't feel comfortable saying, I love you. Right. And so the partner could be, in this case, buying lots of gifts, right? Bringing jewelry, bringing vacations or diamond rings or whatever it is, whatever it is. They may be helping like with things around the house, carrying things, cleaning the house, whatever it may be. They may be spending all this quality time with you and taking you out on all of these dates, and maybe even learning how to dance for you, or learning what your interest is. Like maybe your interest is like pickleball. And so they're like, okay, well, I will learn pickleball because, I know it's important to you, right? They may be doing all of these things to show you and to prove to you that they love you. But if you're the type of person who's looking for the actual words, I love you, then it's never going to be enough. Because all of those examples, you're not going to feel the love because you're looking for it in a specific conditional way. You have an expectation of what love looks like, and that's how you're looking for it. And so it's like people can't meet your standards. You may have even had people tell you that, like, I'm never going to be good enough for you. Well, the real question is not whether or not you're going to be good enough for the other person, but can you receive love? How not only receive it altogether, but how it is given. And a lot of times you can't if you are specifically looking for it to show up in a certain way. So, do you love yourself? Do you show yourself love? Do you meet your own needs? When you feel like asking somebody, do you love me? Is it because you don't feel it for yourself? It could possibly be that you are having some type of relationship, whether it's an intimate relationship, a friendship relationship, a coworker relationship. It may be that you're observing that this relationship doesn't work for you, but I'm just asking you to distinguish, is it because you don't feel it for yourself? So that's one of the things that I would ask you to consider. Oftentimes, you don't feel worthy of receiving love, and so you don't participate in it. And then people can't prove to you. They can't prove to you that they love you because it's like you can't even prove it to yourself. You may block it on such an unconscious level that even if you were showing yourself love, you might even question it. Again, this is what I'm here to help people do. And yeah, If that's something that you want to work on, you can reach out to me. But I want to tell you something. One of the things that I hear in different environments for different things, like for instance, maybe someone experienced a miscarriage, right? Like this would be an environment I might hear people say this. Or maybe you've gone to a funeral and you've lost a loved one. I hear people say this comment, but I'm going to say to you in this particular comment on receiving love, you were born alone, you will die alone. And at the end of the day, you are alone with your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions. So that's one of the reasons why this is an internal issue. Because when you're alone with your thoughts and your feelings, which most people avoid it super, super, super big time. They will keep themselves busy. They will keep themselves scrolling on social media. They will keep themselves numbed out by things like TV or drinking or partying or going out with a friend, like whatever it may be, reading a book. I'm going to tell you, that used to be one of my coping strategies. Instead of dealing with the world and reality, I would dive into book after book, and I was flying through books because I was avoiding life. So it doesn't have to be like some type of drug or alcohol addiction. It can just be the addiction of reading books. But the point is, are you meeting your needs? Because honestly, you're the one who's responsible for that. And when you're looking for it from other people, you're going to start getting into conditional relationships with people. And you're often going to experience disappointment, hurt, and pain because people aren't meeting your needs the way that you want them received. And is that really what you want to do? Is that really how you want to continue going on? So there's tons of ways that you can start transitioning to start loving yourself. So I would definitely encourage you to start journaling, looking at things. I'm going to tell you the first thing to do is to start loving yourself. And I'm going to also tell you that, hey, I was one of the people who, when this advice was given to me, I was like, I don't even know how to love myself. Like, how do you do that? Well, just like you want to receive it from other people, you start doing it for yourself. It's really that simple, but it was complex to me at the time when I was trying to learn to love myself. So I give this example all the time, but I would want my husband to buy me flowers and he didn't. So guess what? I would go out and buy myself flowers, or, I would just want to have like at the very, very beginning, I just wanted like 15 minutes to myself, right? And I wouldn't even give myself that. And now, now I give myself plenty of time. It's not just 15 minutes. But anyway, you just start giving yourself what you need. So you can journal, start showing yourself what you're looking for other people to give you. Be that person to do it for yourself. You can also start to let go of some of these past stories that you believe about yourself, and also let go of having the expectation of other people and how they should love you or how love should look like. And when I say let go of stories, I just want you to know everything is like a story in your head. You're constantly repeating that story over and over too, reinforcing it. And so when you start changing your stories, it may not be believable at first, and that's okay. That's normal. But you, like anything else, repeat those stories over and over and they become true. This is one of the reasons why there's such a thing as a compulsive liar, right? They tell a lie over and over to the point it becomes true. You're essentially doing this because whatever you've experienced in the past, it is not 100% the full reality. It is your perspective of what happened. And you can't objectively necessarily see it. But if you can ask or give yourself forgiveness, you can definitely expand your perception of the situation. And so, like when I do like hypnosis work, one of the things that we do is go into your past and look at something that was really upsetting or painful for you. And we do it from a position where you're seeing yourself, you're disassociated from it. So you're not necessarily in the emotions, but you can look down on the emotions. Your subconscious was able to take the full 360 view, but your conscious can only hold on to like 0.001% of what your actual subconscious can see. And so when you think your stories are true, it's not, it's a fragment of the truth because you're not able, your conscious analytical thinking brain isn't able to handle all the bits of data of the actual truth. And so it has a projection of a sliver of the truth instead of the whole truth. And you're clinging onto this past as the whole truth. And you're really, really certain about it. And you're 100% feeling what you're feeling because of how you're perceiving it. But the whole truth is so much bigger. And I'm not disvalidating whatever you've experienced or seen. It is literally just how the brain works. This is just the science. So this isn't me trying to disempower you, but to let you know that this is how the brain works and that also it can work for you in a different way, for you to be able to recreate a different story, to be able to see it slightly different. And this is one of the things that we do in hypnosis. So that's something that you can do. So now you have your journaling, starting to give yourself the things that you want and need that you're looking for externally from other people, and recreating different stories that are more empowering for you, not as a lie, but more as seeing other sides to the story. So that's probably enough for you to work on right now. And of course, I always am here for those that are really serious about making the work, because the work isn't just easy. I mean, I make it as easy as possible because I'm working with your subconscious. But when you are making a change, you will experience some physiological responses, some disintegration anxiety that's quite normal. So you have to be willing to do this work. One of the things that my spiritual mentor often tells me is, I can't eat for you. So I can give you a buffet. I can come to you with all sorts of tools. I can come to you with the energy, the help, everything that you could possibly need to be able to get through whatever situation you are, to learn to love yourself. But if you're not willing to eat for yourself, I can't eat for you. I certainly can't force it down your throat because that would just be wrong. Okay. That would be violating your will. And I'm not willing to participate in that. So you have to be willing to eat for yourself. You have to be willing to make the changes. And I'm here as that bridge, as that support system to be able to help you. So as always, I let you know that you matter. And if you haven't signed up for the Be Do Have or the transformational coaching program, this is kind of your last chance to do it. So I definitely encourage you to do it. Check out the show notes. I will be sending out emails. If you haven't signed up for my newsletter, I mean, you should have already done it. No, I'm joking. We don't do shoulds around here, but I would definitely encourage you to do that. And you matter.